Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and community members, and welcome to Stories of Survival. I'm Dr. Lana Obradovich, Assistant Professor of Political Science at University of Nebraska at Omaha, and this evening's moderator. I'm the Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency's IC Center of Academic Excellence at UNO, and UNO's primary supervisor of the award-winning student research on nuclear, cyber, and space deterrence and assurance for United States Strategic Command. Basically, I help recruit and train the next generation of our nation's intelligence officers and national security analysts. The rest of my time is spent researching the use of artificial intelligence to improve critical reasoning of national security analysts. So what do I have to do with an event like this? The answer is twofold. With the help of generous donors, Sam and Francis Freed, I created the first Holocaust and Genocide Studies minor program in the Midwest. Sam was my friend. He survived Auschwitz and spent 30+ years speaking to thousands of students and raising awareness so that stories like his would keep being told and humanity would learn to prevent genocides. And then there's another reason why I'm here. Let me start this again. Hi, I'm Lana, and once upon a time, I was a refugee. In 1992, I was a high school student living with my dad, a theater director, my mom, a journalist, and my younger sister. We lived in Mostar, Bosnia-Herzegovina, a city where my family has resided for over 500 years. They saw their land invaded many times. They survived several wars, but always remained. But it all changed in 1992, when the last of those wars erupted. After spending almost 2 years in basements and shelters under constant shelling, after losing my father and numerous family members, my mother, sister, and I were forced to leave. At age 16, I left with all of my possessions in a small backpack. Among them was my geography notebook, because I was still hoping to return in time for my final exam the following week. Instead, I joined 18.2 million men, women, and children across the world who that year alone had left their homelands to escape persecution and violence. Today, that number has reached 68.5 million, or 1 out of every 110 people on Earth. In 1994, after months of interviews and background checks, I landed in Lincoln on a snowy and brutally cold morning. It was December. I only remember hearing the words, "Welcome home," the words uttered by Pastor Bud Christensen, to whose family and Lutheran church I owe everything. He took me to high school on my first day. He introduced me to my new friends. He gave me my first job. He took my mom to her English lessons every single day. A year later, she was working at UNL, and I was a college student. Pastor Bud gave my family that life back. I believe he's here this evening. And I would ask you to honor his work, humanitarianism, kindness, and unconditional love for his fellow humans with a round of applause. Eighteen of my family members eventually found home in Lincoln, many thanks to Bud. 10 of them attended UNL, and all 18 became diehard Husker fans. I went on to graduate with degrees from UNL, St. John's University, and City University of New York. I wrote an award-winning book and award-winning papers, and after 15 years in New York City, when it was time to raise my own family, I came back home. I came to Nebraska. Why do I tell you this? Because being a refugee was never my choice. It's nobody's choice. And it's often very hard to explain that you are there because you're out of choice. that you have escaped hell on earth and would give everything to go back to your country, but can't. You can't because you don't have a country anymore, your home has been destroyed, your family was killed, and you have been abandoned by the world. And all you want is a place to call home, and like many, I have found it right here in Nebraska. Today, I'm no longer some foreigner. I'm a proud, patriotic, and accomplished American. None of us on this stage this evening want to be strangers from foreign lands, alien and distant cities that you fear. We're just human beings and survivors of some of the worst atrocities humanity has ever seen. We are your neighbors, we're your colleagues, we're your friends and community members, and we would like you to meet some of us tonight. I will start by thanking those responsible for this evening event: Lutheran Family Services of Nebraska, Institute for Holocaust Education, and Amnesty International Club at UNL. I would like to introduce Stacey Martin, President and CEO of Lutheran Family Services. Stacey joined LFS of Nebraska in April of 2018. Born in Nebraska, raised in Kansas, and came to LFS from Lutheran Services of Florida, where she served as Vice President of Programs. She succeeds Ruth Heinrichs, who served as CEO of LFS for 42 years. Please welcome Stacey.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. The work of Lutheran Family Services is as inspirational as the day is long. And I'm beginning to learn that winter days in Nebraska are long. We are honored to serve people whose lives and experiences are ones of mythic proportion and scope. The resilience of people who come to LFS for service all across the state and right here in Lincoln is no less than amazing. Lutheran Services works with people from down the street and from around the globe, helping to find ways to restore dignity and hope so that everyone in our communities has the opportunity to contribute their voice and leadership toward the common good we all desire. Again, so that everyone belongs. Our work at Lutheran Services is local and global and stands as a proud reminder of how interconnected we are to one another, no matter where we come from or where we land, even Nebraska on a cold December day. In the stories you hear this evening, you will hear echoes of many thousands of stories of people whose lives have been touched by Lutheran Services and who have left an indelible mark on the mission and impact of Lutheran Family Services of Nebraska. To say that I am honored to be here this evening and in the presence of such an esteemed panel of speakers is an understatement. Thank you, all of you, for being here and for bearing witness to the brave lives gathered here this evening. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to say a word of sincere thanks for our sponsors who made this event possible, and a special thanks to this evening's partners, the Institute of Holocaust Education and Amnesty International Club at UNL. I would also like to take a moment to recognize three very special honorees tonight. At an event before this major event, we had the pleasure of honoring those who are changing lives right here in Lincoln by putting their faith into action. Please help me honor Norm and Joyce Riffle, Connie Duncan, and First Lutheran Church of Lincoln. The work of welcome is one that takes entire communities, and it takes a dedication and devotion from people all over the community. So many thanks for your dedicated faith in action. We are also honored to be partnering tonight with the Institute of Holocaust Education, and the night would not be possible without them. So please help me welcome Scott Litke, the brand new Executive Director of the Institute of Holocaust Education.
Good evening. As stated, I'm the new director of the Institute for Holocaust Education located in Omaha, Nebraska. The Institute for Holocaust Education provides educational, resources, workshops, survivor testimony, and integrated arts programs to students, educators, and the public. The IHE provides support to Holocaust survivors in our community and in the Lincoln community, and actually in Council Bluffs. Our goal is to ensure that the tragedy and the history of the Holocaust are remembered, with appropriate fact-based instruction and materials which are available to students, educators, and the public to enable them to learn the lessons of the Holocaust, and that as a result, that they will inspire our community to create a more just and equitable society. Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Kitty Williams, a Holocaust survivor. Kitty was born in Hungary, the last country to fall under Nazi control. After World War II, Kitty settled in Iowa, where she raised her family and worked all the way up to be vice president of a bank. One highlight of her life was in 1985. She traveled to San Antonio, where she received the Woman of the Year Award for the state of Iowa for the American Business Women's Association. Again, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Kitty Williams.
I was born in a small town in eastern Hungary to Jewish parents. Next to the youngest of 8, we were the only Jewish family in the town. Anti-Semitism was always present in our lives. But in comparison to our ancestors, our sufferings were bearable. Tragedy struck in 1932 when my mother and 5-year-old little sister died of typhoid fever. At the time, I was 7 years old. I attended the local grade school and later a high school by train to the nearest large town 13 kilometers away. By the late 1930s, we started hearing about Hitler and the atrocities against the Jews. My father dismissed it as rumors. He served 4 years in World War I with German soldiers, saying they were so cultured and educated. About that time, my siblings were getting married or leaving home for jobs in larger towns. I was left alone with my dad and felt privileged to have him to myself. We walked together hand in hand the 3 miles to the synagogue on Saturdays, which was the highlight of my life. Then on March 19, 1944, the German army invaded Hungary. My now idyllic life became a nightmare. Every day, new restrictions were ordered on the Jewish people. First, wearing the yellow Star of David on our outer clothing. Curfew were from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. Jewish businesses closed or turned over to Aryans without compensation. We received only 1/2 of food ration, and we became prisoners in our own homes. I remember one Sunday afternoon during our curfew, I met a girlfriend in the park. Other friends joined us, and it was such a wonderful time. I was 19 years old. But the next morning, 2 policemen came to our house. He said they came to arrest me. my dad asked, "Why? What did she do?" Someone reported her she was not wearing her yellow star. Of course, it was a lie. But there were rewards for things like this. Since, in spite of all my tears and my dad's begging, I was handcuffed and transported to jail 8 kilometers away. After 4 tearful days spent in jail, my dad, with the help of a friend, was able to bail me out. But the friend and I were required to walk back the 8-kilometer home. What a joy it was to get home and saw my father again. One night, we woke up to a loud noise, and it was the sound of glass breaking. When my dad went to the door, he met a bunch of drunken hoodlums with a few German soldiers. They demanded that I come out because the soldiers wanted to meet me. Fortunately, my dad spoke German, and he told them I was visiting my sister in Budapest. They left peaceable, while I was shaking under the bed. In the morning, we discovered that the windows on our house were all broken. That was our very own Kristallnacht. After that night, I never slept in my own bed, thanks to our wonderful old widowed neighbor, Uncle Mike. When he heard about the incident, he insisted that I sleep at his house. So I took a blanket and a pillow and slept under his bed. There was no other space in his tiny house. At this point, I have to go fast forward to 1985. On my first trip to my hometown, I asked my former neighbors about Uncle Mike. They said he died the summer that we left. He fought death because he wanted to live to see us when we returned. But he said if he can't, he wanted to be wrapped in Kitty's blanket with her pillow under his head in his coffin. And of course, he was buried that way. But it's really hard for me to tell you that without tearing up. So as you can see, not everybody was evil. There were still a lot of people, a lot of good people. But another incident similar happened several times, but you were still a prisoner in your home, and it was almost a relief when we were told that we had to leave our home because it was no longer really safe to be in our own hometown. So in about toward the end of April, we were told to pack 40 kilograms of clothes and food, and we will be taken out of our town. So after spending several weeks in various ghettos in Hungary, under horrible conditions, we arrived in Auschwitz on June 25th, 1944. The journey was pure hell. Lasted 5 to 6 days with no water or toilet facilities. We received an empty bucket that was designated to be our bathroom. There were 80 to 90 people in a cattle wagon, like sardines in a can. When the train finally stopped and were ordered out under unbelievable, cruel conditions, we saw this huge iron gate. It had the now famous words, Arbeit macht frei. In English, work makes you free. Since the rumor was that the Germans needed our labor, we still had hope. But Auschwitz was a death camp. I always thought that the news I heard about Auschwitz was not true. It couldn't be. But when I saw the flames coming from the chimneys of the gas chambers and inhaled the smoke, I discovered that the terrible reports about that town, or that camp rather, were true. It was only because the Germans lost the war within a short time later, some of us lived to tell. I never saw my father again. He was killed the day of our arrival. One of my sisters worked at the gas chamber, sorting clothes left by the dead. A coworker found my sister's wedding picture in a men's overcoat that same day. I still have the picture with me. But after spending 9 horrible weeks starving in Auschwitz, I and 1,000 other Hungarian Jewish young women were transferred to a munition factory in Germany. While the work was not only hard, it was dangerous. We were filling bombs with poisonous chemicals without gloves or masks. By the spring of 1945, most of us were showing health problems. In late March, our commander, a German older soldier, announced that since the enemy was getting close, he and his staff were leaving the camp. We could go with them or go on our way. Actually, history shows that our commander had orders to take us to Buchenwald, another camp with the only working gas chambers that was still left. They didn't want any witnesses to survive. This good man did not obey his orders. My roommates and I decided to take off. We hid in the woods. Since our commander also warned us about the German people, he asked us to be cautious. So we took for the woods, eating grass and robbing chicken houses at night for about a week. On Sunday, April 1st, 1945, we were spotted by an American Air Force group. They were amazed. Seeing us, we were skinny, we were in prison garbs. There were 20 of us who were roommates, actually. I can't tell you how wonderful they were to us. They were so protective, kind, and loving. A few days later, they took over a German air base, and they offered us jobs. They actually created the jobs for us. Some of us cleaned barracks, and some of us worked in the mess halls. we were so happy. We became useful and human beings, felt like human beings again. Eventually, at the base, I met my future husband, a pilot from Council Bluffs, and arrived here in the States May 11th of 1947. While raising our children, I worked at a bank for nearly 35 years. And now I would like to leave you with some statistics. 850,000 Jews lived in Hungary in 1944. 450,000 were sent to Auschwitz. 400,000 of those killed at arrival. Now about 10,000 Jews live in Hungary. But in closing, I want to tell you how I appreciate this country. There are no words to express my gratitude to America, especially for the freedom we all enjoy. I treasure it. I hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Kitty.
Thank you so much.
Your strength and resilience and your hope never cease to amaze me. Thank you. And now please welcome Channy Laux. Channy is a survivor of the Cambodian genocide. She was 13 years old when Khmer Rouge took over the country in 1975. In June 1979, First Lutheran Church sponsored her family in Lincoln as refugees. After 4 years of no school and without knowing a word of English, she attended Lincoln High. Went on to earn undergraduate degrees from UNL and a Master of Science degree in Applied Mathematics from Santa Clara University. Channy worked in Silicon Valley as an engineer in the aerospace and biotech industries for 30 years before starting her own business, Encore Cambodian Food, and publishing her memoir, Short Hair Detention. She now lives in San Francisco Bay Area with her husband, Kent Laux, a UNL alum, and their children, Natasha and Richard, who are very proud to have Nebraska roots. Please welcome Channy.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add that as a survivor of Cambodian that was committed by the Khmer Rouge, they killed an estimate of 2 million Cambodians in 4 years. And before the Khmer Rouge took over the country, my family lived in the city just like any city in the world, not different at all. But the very next day when they took over, they forced us to leave our home under the gunpoint, and we have 5 minutes to leave. No time to prepare, no time to pack. We just have to leave our house, everything behind. And we walk away from our home, from the city, from any civilization. For the following 4 years, I saw 2 cars, 2 trucks. That's when they come to take the crops that we harvest. I live in the jungle. And so within weeks after they took over, my family lived in a 2-story house, and we reduced to living in a makeshift shelter. There, they forced us to work long hours without any break and without any food to eat. When we came back to our place, we didn't have anything to eat. Our ration was reduced down to 1 tablespoon of rice per person per day. And it went on and on. My mother refused to add any more water, river water, into the broth, so she managed the ration among us. So within our family, we were given ration so that we all survived together. And the emotional and physical pain of starvation persists, not just weeks, but it went on for months. I saw my father reduced to just skeleton, laying down in the corner of our hut without moving, lifeless. I witnessed every one of my family suffer the pain. The pain that felt like your stomach just ingested itself, the cramp, the twist, and it go on. It's, feel like it's go on, and I pray before I go to bed that I would never wake up. And when I woke up, I blame God for bringing me back. What did I do to endure this suffer? Not long after they took us in, they also took me away from my parents. They moved me to labor camps. And I was moved from labor camp to labor camp. Eventually, I didn't know anybody around me. I was a complete stranger. I have no friends, and I trust nobody, and nobody trusts me. And one time we were moved all the way to deep into the jungle, where I live on the wild fruit and bamboo shoot. And every morning before the sun came up, a whistle blow, and we woke up and faced the monsoon rain. And in the cold water, we walked to the work site, and the water would come up to my chest. And after a few hours of work, we walked back. It's not so much the work, it's the torture of getting there and no food, and reduce you to inhumane living condition. So when we come back to our place, we were served rice broth, and we all, sit in the row in a circle of 5 to 6 girls, and we also were served salty broth. And the salty broth would be planted in the middle of us girl, and we'd squat there in the mud. The mud would come past our ankle. And after that, we would go to our resting area, our I call them sleeping rack, where we have to walk through the mud and muck to go to our sleeping rack. They treat animals better than us. They create shelter for the cattle, and underneath the shelter above the cattle, where they temporarily create bamboo rack for us to sleep. So we slept over the cattle with wet clothes, hardly, I never have anything to change, only one outfit. And most of the time it's wet, and if I'm lucky, that day that wasn't raining, my head I can go to bed with dry hair. And sometimes the monsoon rain would come down so hard that we can't even sleep. The water would soak us while we're sleeping, and then the wind would blow sideways, bring the rain into our sleeping area. When that happened, I remember, I don't know why I did that, but I would get up and sat down and hug myself. And all I could think about was my mother. I felt like maybe it would be easier if I refused the ration, the suffering would be shorter. But the thought of how my mother would feel when she knows that she lost a child, how would she react? And I fought to live. I lived for my mother. I told myself, not yet. Don't die yet. Your mom deserves better than that. Don't let the Khmer Rouge take that away from her. So I survive, I live, because there's somebody above me, somebody who cares about me more than I care about myself. And that was my mother. One of the most painful experience that I had is when they tortured me in front of my mother. I was struck multiple times until I was blacked out. And then they must have dragged me at least 50 feet. I only wake up again because I feel the pain on my rib cage, on my skull, because they dragged me by my hair, and I hear a lady cry, and it was my mother. I wanted to stop them, to help her. I want to comfort her. But I couldn't see and I couldn't move. And finally, when I able to see, I can see her frantically crying, agonized. She was pacing back and forth all around them, pleading for them not to hurt her baby. Take her instead. Kill her instead. She was brave because she was defending a criminal, me. And my crime was running away from the labor camp to be with my mother. Not all of my family made it, survived. One of my guilt that I carry with me until this day is the fact that I encouraged my younger brother to leave the country. When I learned that my father was planning to escape, my younger brother came to me and he said, that dude, he couldn't say anything else. He called out my name, but that's all he could say. He was shaking and scared and pale. And he finally said, I don't want to go. We didn't have a choice. We do what our parents tell us. And he was so scared. I could see in his eyes. And he was just a young boy. He was 12 years old. And he didn't want to go because he's scared about escaping all that. But what did I tell him? I said, are you crazy? I wish Dad take me. Without even thinking, I told him that. because of how bad it was. It's better to have a chance to live a normal life than to suffer every day, relentless, extreme torture. He looked at me and I want to hug him, but I couldn't hug him because that would expose their plan and somebody might know. So all I could do is hold on to his cold finger. And we couldn't say anything else. And then he said, "You take care of Mom. Be gentle to her." He was 12 years old. Why do we have to say goodbye that way? Why do we have to make that decision? I never see my brother again. And I wish that I hide him away from my father. For me, it was 4 years that feel like 40 years of suffering. And at first, I thought, this won't last very long because the world will not look away and let us suffer, let us endure this inhumane treatment. Somebody's gonna come and help us out. This is terrible, it won't last very long, but then it went on. And after a while, I gave up. I felt like nobody cared. We were left behind, dismissed. And I know that at this minute, there's refugee out there feeling the way I felt, abandoned, neglect, dismissed. And I feel that we all have the capability to help if we can understand the life of a refugee. When we help a refugee, we are helping children because it was their children that their parents leave their country, escape, didn't have a choice, leave everything behind, say goodbye to their loved one. It's all because of the future of their children. And when we help the refugee, we help to make a world peaceful for all children, for their future. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank First Lutheran Church to sponsor my family, to welcome me to Lincoln. And also thank you, Lutheran Family Services, for continued support of the refugee family. And thanks each and every one of you for your presence and your caring. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your incredible story, Chani. For those of you interested, Chani will be signing books directly after this panel in the main lobby. And as a special bonus, she's hosting a Cambodian cooking class tomorrow evening from 5 to 8 at Art and Soul here in Lincoln. You won't want to miss that. As many of you know, Lincoln is home to one of the largest populations of Yazidi refugees in the world. The Yazidi people are an ethnic and religious minority of northern Iraq that has experienced a genocide by ISIS in 2014. Thousands of Yazidis were killed and women and children were captured for sex slavery. Shireen Jardo Alhanto is a survivor. She was captured and sold 5 times as a sex slave over a 1-year period. She endured horrific trauma, including electrocution and body organ harvesting. After her harrowing rescue, she has bravely shared her story with the world. She's been featured in the national and international media. She has spoken to the United Nations and continues to be a voice for women and girls. Shireen still has 18 family members missing after the genocide, and she's now seeking asylum in the US and lives right here in Lincoln. Before she begins, she would like to make a correction. Due to improper interpretation, her name has been publicly misreported. You may know her as a Shireen Ibrahim. She would like you to know that her family name and the name she prefers is Shireen Jardo Alhunto. Please help me welcome Shireen Jardo Alhunto with her interpreter, Carrie Hessel.
ناوێم شێرین جردۆیە ئەس کەچەکەی زدیمە کەش دەستێ داعش دەرکەتیم عێراقێ شنگالێ.
My name is Shireen Jirdo. I am one of the Yazidi girl from Iraq, Shingal, and ISIS survivor.
بەری ئیڤێکە داعش بینە سەرێمە ئەزوو عائلەتێ خوا دڤێگرە بوون و حیاتها ما خۆش بوو بەس حیاتەکە بەسیت بوو ژبەر ئەزوو خوشک و برایەت خوا البایەک بوون و بەهەوەر نەتکرد هەتا دنێ بساغی دەستێ منە خوشک و برایەت مژێ قوت ببێ.
Before I was abducted by ISIS group, I was living a simple, happy, and fearless life with my other siblings and my whole other families as well. I never thought I would ever get separated from my family.
السێ هەشت ڕۆژەکە ڕەش بوو ئەو ڕۆژە هەکە داعش بسەرمەدە گرتی بهزارە عائلێت مەکەتن دەستێ داعش و بهزارە کوشتن الداری چاوێت مێ زارۆکش داکا قوتکردن و زارۆ کوشتن و مێر کوشتن.
On August 3rd, 2014, was that day when ISIS surrounded myself, my family, and the whole villages. And we had nowhere to escape. It was that devastating day when ISIS came inside our village and took and killed thousands of our people.
وەگێ داعش ئەم گرتین ئەم هەموو ژێ قوتکردن مێر و زارۆک و ژن و کەچێک ئەم هەموو ژێ قوتکردن و مە نزانی داعشێ چ بسەرێ مەکە.
We never knew what could happen in that moment, but ISIS started separating girls and men and forcing the men to be separated and started shooting them and killing them. We just weren't sure what was going to happen in those minutes.
ڕۆژە هەرە بەری 47 عائلێ مە بەس کەتن دەستێ داعش و هەتا vێ ڕۆژێ ئەس تشتێکیش هێشتا ژێ نزانم.
It was that first day, the same day in August 13, and she mentioned earlier too, she saw in her eyes that they were killing men in front of her eyes that she witnessed. And she could hear the babies and infants that were taken away from their mothers. And in the same day, they took and separated her and 40 other her family members as well.
تشتێک نەما هەکە داعش بسەرێ مە نەکرد ئەس یەکش وانم ئەس 5 جارە دەستێ داعشدا هاتمە کڕین و فرۆتن کەچکێت عەمرێ وان 10 ساڵ شغلا بيس بيت كرن وكرينو فروتن داعش بيت كر سو تشيكر بود جو سوكا سبايا.
I was one of those girls that was sold 5 times in a market of slavery. I was sold as a sex slave, and I was raped, and then you name it, they have done to us.
وهتا نهانكي أفياكا داعش بسري مكري بردوامة في 4 سالن مستمرة السر إيزيديا وهتا نها بهزارة عائلة ما الدستي داعش دنا تشتكي جين زانن.
And it's been 4 years that we have missing thousands of our girls and men that have been killed, that we have not heard a word from them.
داعش وقتها كأز قرتيم أزش عائلة قد كرم تشتهر المني بزحمة تري وقت دسلي منو خوش كبران مو عائلة من شيء قد بوي.
It was the hardest part for me when ISIS took away and separated me from my family. It was the hardest and painful for me for our separation.
باشر هجدا عائلة إيش عائلتي مخش كبران ما تشتغنا معايا بس تسوير وان البرجافي منا مهنك أجي تسوير جنينة.
The only thing that I have left in front of my eyes is left it for me was those pictures in front of you that you see. That's all I can see and have at the moment.
وداعش قالك أني سري مكة وجنيت إيزيديا وهطات بيجي بس داعش مكر داعش أس عملي كرم داعش أس كهرب كرم داعش كبوي مشكينا وهطا في روجي أس نظام شو عملية داعش المكرية.
You name it, they have did to me. I was tortured. They broke my nose. They made a surgery on me, and they also while I was tortured and having as a sex slave to a different ISIS members, I was sold to different people and getting hit all the time.
ما بجافي خدي داعش تشتكر وتشبسري ما تكر بزا داعش مكري البعمة بربريكا سعادك عائلة أمي دستي داعش دو بهزارة بابو برايد ما وخشكو برايد ما نزان نزامنا هرهش داع إش عائلتي براو ما من نزان من نتساغ ندمرينا أسيك أخبار السر نظام وهزارات وكا عائلتي منها دستي داعش دنا.
What ICE did to me will never bring my life back. It's been so hard for me, and what they did, it was nothing left they didn't do to me, and it will never be forgotten. It will be a painful for the rest of my life.
أفيك بسري مهات منافي بسري أكيد بي أفيك داعش بسري زدياني منافي بسري أكيد بي داعش قلك بإزدياكر وهتا في روجيا بردوام السري زديا.
This is something that happened to me personally. I would never hope that would happen to anybody, but as you all know, what happened to thousands of Yazidis, which is the girls and boys and women that are being killed or been separated from their loved ones.
تشتيش مرات كن مدفي بري هر تشتكي داكو خوش كدما وبابو بران ما اش دستي داعش درين أو تشتي هري مهم تريك عائلة ما إيش دست داعش در كفن بس هك عائلة ما دست داعش دبن ما تش حياة نينا ما تشتغنينا بي برايت خو وبي عائلة خو.
We'll never bring our life back till we get our families back from ISIS. There are so many of them still are missing, and we have not heard anything from them.
قالك يا أزو خشكو برأيت خوا البايق بون ومقو بلكي أزو خشكو برأيت خوا جي قد نبن مدنا داق بو منا بابو مخشكو برأيت خوا خواهي كرن بس منا دي نا خشكو برأيت مزاوجي نامدي مدرسة خلاص كرن داعش دستي من وان جي قد كرن.
I never thought I would get separated from my siblings, but ISIS have separated us, and I will never have my life back.
ومدفي هر يكين يدفي دري يحاضر بوي وحسام بكا وكاربي بري هر تشتكي إخسيرين ما فرابي وداكو خشكين ما وبابو براد ما إش دستي داعش داريني إش بري آب سريز ديا هاتي بسري يكي نهات داعش قلق بسريز ديا كر داعش تشتكي بيز ديا نكر بي أفكا توجن إيت عمري وان 10 سال بربن شغلا بيس بيكربن وبهزارة خورتين ما كشتن من داري جاوين में خورتين ما سرجي كرنش بيجدوا وزارو كشتن وبيرو كالا ميرد ما كشتن.
I hope we get support, and we have many Yazidis that were killed, were slaughtered, were taken as a sex slave. I seen in my eyes there were so many girls and a teenager, 9 years old and up to teenagers, were taken to sex slave, and we have not heard anything from them. And our hope is to get support and get to hear something from them.
أسجلك يشوى ممنون وقتك وهاتي حسا قصة مكري وأفنا قصة مهموكا أفتيقك إش قصة منا بلكي مش ورا قود بمنافس وقتي واجي بخورة خلاصكم وداعش قلق آني سريمي وعائلتي مي نهال دستي وانده وأصيق أخبار السر عائلتي خوان زانم وقلق بإزديا همو كيكرين وإزدي قلياتك كتشكبون نزانن شما وها ما كرين ما تعدك اليكي نكربو.
I want to thank you for your time and listening to my story. I know we are a small minority, Yazidis minority, and we have not got much support, but I want to thank you for being here and listening to my story, and hoping that someday we get support from whole United States and all other around the world.
وهتا في روجي أس نزانم داعش أفتش عملية داعش المتشكرية أس هاتم في دريجي والعراق يجي من نزاني أفتش عملية داعش المكرية يعني إجبر أس نكارم شما بات اختورا وزانب داعش عملية المكرية إجبر أس نتيشام داعش أس عملية.
She's still trying to discover about her surgery that ISIS did to her. She never heard anything about. She's still trying to discover and find out about her surgery that they did to her, and she is going through a difficult time. And she, at the same time, she has GoFund, and just to find out about her cut skin. And that's one of the things she needs to find out right now.
وراست أزنها أز اللين كنت عايشم أز الجهة كي آمنم بس وقتي كعائلتي ملدستي داعش ده مت حياة نينا ومتش دنينا بشتي يخشكو برايت خوا وبشتي بهزارات عائلتي ملدستي داعش ده وأز نزال من تساغ الندمرينا.
Yes, I am free here, but without having my loved ones with me, I will never have my life straight up, and I will never have my life back till I have or get to my family. It is not easy for me to leave. It's just because I have a free life, my life will never come back, and it's very difficult for me. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for the bravery and courage that you had tonight, for sharing your incredible stories of survival. My name is Lacey Studnicka, and I'm the Director of Advancement for our refugee program at Lutheran Family Services of Nebraska. I want to give a special thanks right now to our wonderful MC, Lana, and also to Carrie for his wonderful support and interpretation of Shireen tonight. Thank you both so much. And thank you all for taking the time tonight to come here and bear witness to these incredible stories. I have had the pleasure of welcoming refugees into Nebraska for the last 15 years. And Nebraska has a long legacy of being a place of welcome. In fact, in 2016, a lot of people don't know this, Nebraska welcomed the most refugees per capita than any other state in the U.S. Yes! That is something to be proud of. Right now, we are in the middle of the largest humanitarian crisis of a generation. There are more than 68 million people displaced around the world, and half of them are children. We are poised and ready in Lincoln and at Lutheran Family Services to welcome refugees, especially refugees, Yazidi refugees. And it's important that you understand that over the last 2 years, 0 Yazidis have arrived into Lincoln, into Nebraska. At Lutheran Family Services, we are committed to serving all of God's people. And even though only 1 new refugee family is arriving brand new, we are busier than ever caring for those who call Nebraska home and making sure they have access to everything they need to make sure that they have a thriving life here. But we need you, and we need you to partner with us, and we need you to volunteer. And we need you to help teach English and have a cup of tea and show someone the bus route. And we need you to be a friend and an advocate. We need you to invite us to your church, to your book club, to your Rotary, so that you can hear these stories, so that we can share with you all that comes when welcoming refugees. In this time of crisis, I ask that you stand with us and support refugees. Please support the work that we do at Lutheran Family Services so that we can provide access to mental health services and trauma treatment. Like the stories you're hearing tonight, we are on the front lines making sure that that access is there. If everyone could take a minute and take out their cell phones, you can help us tonight. Even with a $5 donation to Lutheran Family Services, you are partnering with us so that we can carry on this work of welcome together. And so here is a web address if you are interested in supporting the welcome of refugees. In your program tonight, we've also included a contact sheet. You probably got all this paper, you're like, what is all this? There's a contact sheet that you can write your name and your number and your phone number and your address, and we'll contact you. And we will ask you to volunteer, how you want to get involved. We have volunteers with blue flashy necklaces. Cue the blue flashy necklaces, anybody have a? And so they will have baskets where you can drop your contact information card or your donation form to stand with us. And we have Ted, who is our volunteer coordinator right here, and he'll be at our table in front. So go chat with him and ask him how to get involved, because he will tell you. He knows all about it. Our speakers will be around for the rest of the evening if you'd like to take pictures and come hug them and say hello to them. And Channy will be signing books. And Channy, I'm going to give you a head start. So if you want to go and get to your table, that way you don't have to fight the crowds. But again, thank you for taking your evening and spending it with us tonight to hear these incredible stories of refugees who make our community better. Have a wonderful night.